In this video, I'm going to talk about the technical aspects of choosing white balance when shooting video. I'm going to use FiLMiC Pro to show you how you can achieve a great looking video with your smartphone and a low-cost camera app. One of the key ingredients for shooting great looking video is setting something called white balance. This can also be referred to as gray balance, neutral balance, or color balance. As you can see from the common word in all these terms, it's all about balance. We don't talk about focus balance or shutter speed balance, so that's a good clue to let us know color works in a different way. Therefore, it will help us as filmmakers and video producers to think a bit differently when it comes to color. But what exactly are we balancing? If you have anything to do with digital images, at some point you'll come across the RGB color model. RGB is an additive color model in which red, green, and blue light are combined to reproduce a range of colors. We use the RGB color model for sensing, representing, and displaying images in electronic systems, such as televisions and computers. When we set white balance, we are basically telling the camera how to balance red, green, and blue. Take a digital image. Are the parts that are supposed to be white actually white? If they are, then most likely the other colors are correct too. For example, a mix of 100% red, green and blue equals white. Conversely, 0% red, green and blue equals black. Meanwhile, 100% red, 0% green and 0% blue obviously equals red, and so on. So this is why this setting is referred to as white balance, because if we get the balance correct for white, everything else should be accurate as well. Why is white balance even more important in low-budget cameras? Many consumer-level cameras, like those in smartphones, use different forms of compression to reduce the size of the video and image files. Part of that compression process, such as in H.264 and H.26 files, can involve discarding color information. This is called Chroma subsampling. As I've talked about before, to make digital media manageable, clever people had to work out a way to remove information without humans noticing too much. This is used in H.264, H.265, JPEGs, MP3s, MP4s, and many other files. With digital images, the clever people discovered humans are less sensitive to missing color than they are to missing luma information. Which is brightness and darkness. The subject of video compression is pretty complex and highly scientific, but to put things simply, smartphones and other consumer DSLRs and mirrorless cameras record compressed video to save disk space and bandwidth. On the other hand, more professional cameras record video uncompressed, but then compress the video at the end of the filmmaking process. Why? Because streaming platforms like Netflix or YouTube need to save bandwidth, and streaming a uncompressed video file over your average broadband connection just wouldn't be practical. You can see the properties of a video I shot with FiLMiC Pro using the H.264 AVC codec. You can see a set of 3 numbers on the right of the line highlighted in blue. This tells you about the Chroma subsampling going on. By the way, when set to H.265 HEVC codec, Adobe Premiere says the file is also a 420 codec. When the 420 Chroma subsampling video compression is used, only 1 pixel of color information is retained for every 4 pixels captured. What happens is, while each pixel records and retains the luma information, 1 pixel of color information is spread out over 4 pixels. Therefore, when it comes to color, your H.264 file in fact only has 1/4 of the video's resolution. For example, if you shoot at HD 1080p, the color information is actually only recording at 540p. This is one reason why you might want to record video at 4K and then master at 1080p, because 4K records color at 1080p resolution, so you'll capture color information for every pixel in your master. So what does this all have to do with setting white balance? uncompressed video files retain their color information. Therefore, there's greater scope for fixing color balance in an editing program. These files then go through the post-production process before getting compressed at the end. Meanwhile, with compressed video, color information is discarded before it reaches your editing software. For this reason, fixing incorrect white balance in compressed video can be less effective, and so it becomes more important to get white balance correct when you're filming. The color of light is measured in kelvins. This is a screenshot from the FiLMiC Pro camera app. You can see there are two K numbers. In the bottom left is the color temperature reading of 3,907 kelvins, and in the middle 3,863 kelvins. They're different numbers because I still have it on auto. White balance is constantly adjusting and one number has to keep up with the other. Once you tap the AWB button in blue, it turns red to fix the white balance setting. Both numbers then synchronize. In the color control box, you can see a row of icons at the bottom: light bulb for tungsten, sun, daylight, cloud for cloudy sky, and what looks like a modern energy-saving bulb, which is for fluorescent lighting. These icons represent different types of light, which will have different preset Kelvin numbers. Bright light, like daylight or studio lights, tends to have a temperature of around 5,550 kelvins. A candle flame is warmer and redder, placing it at about 1,850 to 1,930 kelvins. Alternatively, pure blue sky from a north-facing source comes in at about 10,000 kelvins. Rather than set the white balance using the camera sensor, you can use a preset. For example, if you are filming in daylight, you could simply click the sun icon. The advantage would be that you don't have to keep checking white balance for every shot. Another advantage could be gained when using two or more cameras that you want set to this same white balance. There's no way to input exact Kelvin numbers into FiLMiC Pro, and setting a specific number using the selector and your finger is a little bit fiddly. But using the same preset on both cameras means you can quickly set them both to the same exact white balance with 2 taps. This can save you time later, as if you are cutting between 2 or more cameras, you will most likely want the shots to match in color tone. To the right of the white balance preset icons are 2 letters, A and B. These letters can be used to store custom preset Kelvin numbers. Simply hold your finger on the letter and an option to save the current settings pops up. Again, this might be useful if you are filming with 2 or more cameras and want to match white balance settings. Spend a few minutes finding the white balance you need and store it in one of FiLMic's custom preset spaces. Our brains are highly tuned to read the faces of other humans, while colors of other objects are less important. A species that relies on social interaction needs to know how others are feeling as quickly as possible. So if skin tones are off in an image, our brains are hardwired to sound the alarm. Hey man, you don't look well. Of course, there are other messages we receive from natural changes in skin tone. Angry people's faces go redder, for example, and a blushing face might mean they've done something wrong. Or it might mean something else. So no wonder then that our brains are highly tuned to detect slight changes in skin tone. Our ancestors' survival depended on it. When it comes to film and video, getting skin tones right can be important too. Therefore, we have good reason to pay close attention to our white balance setting. And as our smartphones shoot 8-bit video with compression which discards color information, it's even more important to get the color right in camera, especially if our video contains people. White balance works differently when using film instead of digital video. Film cinematographers use filters and different film stock and, after shooting, color grading. Color grading in film is achieved using exposure at the labs and also digitally. For this reason, film cinematographers need to focus much more on set design and lighting to achieve the desired color of the film. It's important to know this because these days the temptation for digital filmmakers is to assume digital coloring is our only option. The idea that color grading and correction and cameras built to produce uncompressed or raw video files are required to produce produce good color is unique to digital. In truth though, if we employ the same techniques used by film cinematographers of the last century, our smartphones are close to 16mm film cameras in quality. Just remember that there are people who want you to believe the quality of your film or video can be improved by buying their expensive cameras. Open FiLMiC Pro. Tap the imaging panel icon. Aim the camera at a non-reflective white surface. Now tap the auto white balance icon and it turns from blue to red to lock the white balance. Now close the imaging panel. If you tap the Auto White Balance button a third time, it changes from red to orange. This is a newer setting in FiLMiC Pro which locks the white balance as soon as you start filming. However, with this setting, when you're not recording, the white balance reverts to auto. Now, this is a useful feature if you want white balance to be locked when filming, but don't have time to keep manually setting and locking white balance for each shot. That way, at least your white balance will be stable throughout the shot, because it's far easier to fix slightly off white balance later with a fixed setting than with one which is auto-adjusting through the shot. When setting white balance, you need a neutral surface to point the camera at. There are items you can purchase, or you can use a piece of white paper. FiLMiC Pro suggests tissue or kitchen towel, as it's less reflective than printer paper, for example. If you want to be fully scientific about setting white balance, you can look at getting one of these. However, for a fraction of the price, you can get a fold-up white balance reflector. When tested, FiLMiC Pro found the color temperature result was identical between the X-Rite and the fold-up reflector. Even the kitchen towel was only about 10% out, and not too difficult to fix in post. Most editing software now has easily used white balance correction features. In Adobe Premiere and After Effects, I regularly use the white balance selector contained within Lumetri Color. If you have a part of the image that you know should be white, but is currently not white, you can use the eyedropper to select it. Lumetri Color will now adjust the white balance of the whole image based on the area you selected. Okay, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.